I love fighting games. I have since I first played Soul Calibur as a child, and it remains one of my favourite franchises of all time. Death Battle being a series that started in a company with a heavy video game focus naturally have a lot of fighting game episodes, so I'm going to talk about them all. Well, except for a few. Obviously, as this video is coming out prior to Akuma vs Shao Kahn's review, Akuma vs Shang Tsung and Shao Kahn vs M. Bison will be left out for that review. Additionally, several fighting game episodes I've already reviewed and will list here for you. Chun-Li vs Mai Shiranui, Ken vs Terry, Ryu vs Jin, and Heihachi vs Geese were reviewed in my Heihachi vs Geese review. Thor vs Raiden was in my Marvel vs Non-DC episodes review, and Glory vs Machamp and John Talbane vs Sable were reviewed in my Link Season 7 retrospective video. Also Black Canary vs Sindel, which I completely forgot about, but I've remembered in time to say it even though it's not in my script. I know some people get really pissy about not including literally every episode in these videos due to the title, but for fuck's sake, I'm not going to repeat myself. I tell you where you can go to find my full opinions on these episodes, and for this one I want to focus on what I have to focus on, which is already so many episodes it isn't even funny. And like, what else would I call this? Every fighting game Death Battle reviewed, except for a couple.
Zangief's youth and lack of political agenda were enough to give him a slight edge.
You know, aside from the usage of non-canon fan art for a Mike Haggar feat and even the conclusion, this is a perfectly average Season 1 episode. There aren't many jokes I really acknowledge, though I like Boomstick being dead set on a kitten canon for some reason, and I kind of like how Boomstick is very blatantly biased, but it doesn't actually sway the outcome of the fight at all. I'd also wish there was more love for Zangief too, but I don't care that much about Zangief, so it's okay. And honestly, my biggest problem with the fight is that it's just too short. Everything at the start and at the end is really well done, especially by Season 1 standards. A basic, no intelligence versus debater brain cell level test of strength at the start perfectly fits these wrestlers. I like how Zangief whiffs with the lariat that originated with Haggar and then gets it turned back on him. I like the usage of the blunt pipe and Zangief using his backhand to get rid of it. That's a pretty fun trading of abilities. But then they go into a building and while it's kind of funny, it does sort of kill the pacing and unfortunately leaves me wanting to see what's happening inside because after this it ends. It's a great ending though, with a ton of suspense as to who's going to win as they slowly turn the tables or who's getting pile drived, a fun nod to how the two share the move and imagining how Haggar succeeds in the move he originated while Zangief fails, but this time Zangief succeeds in the move that he originated while Haggar failed, leading to a pretty good death that is very well done, especially for the time. Heck, people who aren't paying much attention might not even be able to tell who won until Zangief gets up if they happen to miss the blood under Haggar's head. Unfortunately, the brief scuffle at the top of the building is the only time they actually trade proper blows. While the ground fight is full of just a brute force challenge and their techniques trading off, this is the only time it's a test of real skill, and I really wanted more of it. These are skilled fighters, just I wish we got to see more of it. And while the conclusion has some neat reasoning, like the larger official size of Zangief matched with his training in younger age, thus being more fitness, which, I mean, yeah, that's nice. At the same time, I feel like they could have brought up that the age is also against Zangief because it also means Haggar is more experienced. But that's the least of the concerns when they also use fan art as a feat and also the lack of a political agenda as a downfall of Haggar. I can't, that's just, no, that's stupid. As it is, I both can see and also don't see why this episode isn't talked about more. Sure, it's an irrelevant Season 1 episode that is cut way too short and lacking in a lot of areas, but it's also one that I do have a lot of fun with and really enjoy the brief moments of before and after the overly long building section, which itself isn't too bad. This is also the only episode with Pedo Bear, and I'm counting that as an L. Unfortunately, it sits as like a 6 out of 10 though. I like it too much to be a neutral 5, but it does not deserve to be higher. Hey, this episode's pretty funny. That's all it's got going for it. And by pretty funny, I mean, I like the Mario Party joke, I really like Wiz's reasoning for why the baby cannon is a bad idea, being so genuinely callous, and I like the comedic timing involved with Riptor crashing into Boomstick's car. Aside from that, there's only so much you can talk about, it's not funny. I do really like Boomstick talking over the Riptor analysis. You know, I like the feeling that Boomstick has his own set of knowledge that makes him worth being in these episodes from a logistical point of view. As for the fight, it's not even a minute long, and the entire thing is just Riptor beating on Yoshi until Yoshi takes a shit and sends it flying off the cliff. There's really not a whole lot to say about it though. The animation conveys Riptor very well, ferocious and fast, brutal and efficient, merciless and violent, while Yoshi is portrayed absolutely horribly, standing there and getting his little green ass hand to on a platter until he turns the tables and uses that ass to take a shit and Riptor dies. Yoshi, the fearless, brave dinosaur buddy of Mario, reduced to a crying little bitch who wins with a shit. Overall, like a 6 out of 10 as well. I like more about it than I dislike, But once again, keep in mind, Season 1 is a whole different set of standards to every other season. This would struggle to get a 1 out of 10 if it came out nowadays.
No, that's a special cloak designed to fit her Kaka body.
Her what body?
No one knows!
It's weird how often That's Right Broomstick appears in Season 1. This episode, it's not bad, but it's not excelling at all either. Analysis is fine, there's some nice moments. I like that Wiz immediately shuts down Degenerate Boomstick, even if nowadays it feels almost hypocritical. And I like the jokes about Felicia being distracted and that Taokaka is stupid, because she is. She's fucking stupid. I don't think that's insulting the character, when that's the entire point of the character, is that she's stupid. I mean, like 90% of Taokaka's charm is the fact that she's not very smart. I like Taokaka a lot. The fight itself is like, it's okay. It's very 1 minute melee, but not like your badass, well-animated character respecting 1 minute melees that excel at being fun and exciting. But your average, middle-of-the-road, forgettable, one character does a combo, then the other one does a combo, rinse and repeat 1 minute melees. The kind you watch and go, hey, that was pretty good, then 3 days later you come back to the season list and go, wait, I don't remember this episode happened, and then start a cycle of forgettable adequacy. I like basically everything from when they get distracted onwards. I find the moment funny. I like Felicia and Taokaka's reactions to accidentally killing it. I like some of the visual gags and the bit of them just hitting each other across the screen, and I like the death, but it all sort of smells of just generally being good enough without being as good as it can be, even for the time. And everything at the start of the fight is just unmemorably well animated for its time. 5 out of 10, I'm really neutral on it. Oh man, I wonder how much of Season 1 opinion is carried by nostalgia as one of the earliest followers of the show.
You know, I've always wanted to eat a...
Holy shit, they had Pokemon music playing in Pikachu's analysis, and it just gave me this sense of nostalgia out of nowhere for a franchise that I really barely kept track of at the time. Honestly, the analysis just put a smile on my face. Don't really know why. I liked a lot of the jokes, like Boomstick adamantly refusing to be proven wrong and just his being baffled at Blanka. I like that they came up with an estimation for Pikachu's stats based on EV training, despite the fact that they used Gen 1's Poke Battles, which worked on a completely different system to modern ones. Actually, Blanka's analysis, when I think about it, really carries. It has the best jokes, best interactions between the hosts, and while Pikachu is carried by my personal nostalgia of the Pokemon series, except when they talk about Pikachu being legendary Pokemon inside, instead of Brandon Yo's Regice, they show Drake's Dragonite, which is not a legendary. Regardless, this is a good analysis, and let me be perfectly honest, I like the fight too. I do. The fight does everything I want. It uses a lot of Pikachu's moveset, including the anime-exclusive mid-air spin dodge. It successfully conveys the dynamic of the two and has an incredible feeling of momentum and pace. And I'm serious, this animation really knows when to crank up the speed and when to put the moments of levity as to not lose the viewer's understanding of what's happening. There's a really satisfying feeling of flow and energy whenever Pikachu and Blanka are flying through the air and moving around with tons of agility. And while Blanka does overpower Pikachu really easily at the start before no-stealing his Thunderbolt, I think this works to emphasize Pikachu's need to strategize and use his moveset, which he does, and it evens the playing field out quite a bit. I love the pacing of Pikachu's quick attack into Iron Tail and the way Blanka is still able to keep up with Pikachu's movements, leading to the first direct electrical clash between Blanka's Big Discharge and Pikachu's Thunder. And the ending is really good too. The feeling of sheer speed and power of Blanka's Lightning Cannonball and Pikachu's Voltacle charging at each other before colliding is just fantastic. And then the suspense building up to an intentionally comedic anticlimax where Blanka just straight up bites off Pikachu's head before blending and drinking him is really funny to me. Not to mention the music for this battle is Pokemon music, so of course it's great. And the conclusion is not making Blanka resist Iron Tail is brain dead stupid, but what can you do? If anything, the biggest shortcoming of this episode is that the animation is too short. I would have liked more usage of their abilities and powers in more creative ways leading up to the finisher. Really, this episode is like a really good version of Haggar vs Zangief, with all the pros, but also all the cons, aside from the building section. This episode's pacing is actually good. Oh, also, this has to have one of the best next time trailers they've done. Just the build-up of Gogo's Kamehameha to Superman's symbol and Wizard Boomstick just flipping out in the weirdest ways. Sometimes it's the simplest things. I mean, still, this is nowhere near as good as Batman vs Spider-Man's next time, but you know. 7 out of 10, I like this episode a surprising amount.
Man, I wish I was that jumpsuit.
That's right.
Let me preface this by repeating that Soul Calibur is by far my favorite fighting game franchise. Soul Calibur 6 is one of the games that made pop up the most to its reveal trailer, and it's one of the only 2 fighting games I've ever spent money to get the DLC for, the other being Dragon Ball FighterZ. This episode is shit. Look, I can forgive Sleazebag Boomstick on Ivy because that's actually what Ivy wants out of people, so someone being sleazy towards her, if anything, means that Ivy succeeded at her goal, but they didn't need to do it to this extent. And then it keeps going. They're talking about Orchid's breasts being so big that no brain can process them. But apparently women can though, because they're just not sexually attracted to boobs. I guess Wiz has just forgotten about homosexuality. But also, if no brain can process the size of them, then why does the sexual attraction to them matter? this is why am I arguing about this? This is so stupid. But also, they calc Orchid's breath size, and okay, sure, why not? It's maybe funny to someone, and then Boomstick makes a dick joke and all is wrong with the world again. The fight itself is also just shit. There's two things I like. I like Ivy's critical finish because it's at least something that's happening on screen that's interesting to look at, and I like the Flash finisher trade because it's funny. If that was the only boob-related joke in this, good. But beyond that, the whole fight is white noise. It's well animated white noise, yes, and the fighting is not the worst. But it's not very interesting. Nothing happens at all. Nothing. I guess the death is fine, but then the battle ends with Orchid flashing her brother and killing him for no reason, which combined with the fact that they say no sexual attraction means no effect, means that I guess they're implying that Jaggy Waggy is sexually attracted to his sister. Why? I like the dad joke in this episode though. 3 out of 10, go away.
Hello gamers, I am Cydude, the epic gamer.
That guy's my fucking hero.
So can I just say, right, this episode starts solidly with a joke about Boomstick wanting Cyrax and Wiz hitting him for it. You know, you give him the fun little implication that in the World of Death battle there was a disagreement between the two hosts on who Fulgore should fight. But aside from that, maybe I'm just not enough of an epic gamer to get the appeal, but this episode's analysis is kind of eh. It has some jokes I find amusing, but it's mostly white noise. Well, okay, Fulgore's is. I do like quite a bit of the jokes in Sektor's analysis, you know, this guy's my fucking hero, and I like the joke about the missile launchers. The fight, meanwhile, look, I like this combo Sektor drops leading to the pulse blades. I like the imagery of Fulgore catching and stopping Sektor's compactor, allowing him that moment to finally finish charging his reactor, and the idea that Fulgore is charging his reactor throughout the fight as it progresses, but man, the actual fight. Okay, so it literally starts because Sektor was running in and ran into an invisible Fulgore, and they decide to fight. Now, to be fair, Sektor is some Mortal Kombat, so I completely buy into them fighting over something like this. The start of the fight would be perfectly acceptable for the start of a really good battle, admittedly. But after this, we get a stupid shot of Sektor swinging on some lights and the fight ends. Like, wow, that's it. Short, lame, boring, very little to be entertained by. 3 out of 10, please improve.
One dumpling, please. Dragon Warrior size.
Oh shit, it actually did. Ryu vs Scorpion is an excellent episode. First off, I really like the analysis segments for this episode, both sides as well. Both had jokes that I quite enjoyed. I like the diarrhea foot joke, and Boomstick massively underselling the Shiro Ryu's crimes, referencing the silliest parts of Mortal Kombat back when the series had a sense of humor, the karate Star Wars parallels, so on, they're just fun. It's the analysis that I not only enjoy, but also remember, and ideally this is the kind of analysis that I would love to see more on Death Battle. Just memorable ones. Combine this analysis, sense of humor, and added discussion of the character's actual character and stories, with current episodes' calculations and actual versus analysis, and I'd be happy. You know, like with Dio vs Alucard's analyses. Fucking good, goated episode. As for the fight, it's almost like an alternate Ryu vs Jin. Like, yeah, obviously, yeah, both have Ryu, both put him against some of the most iconic characters from Street Fighter's biggest rival series, both have very little reason to fight, but it's understandable due to the nature of the characters, and both use existing voice lines from the character's home series, but in a way that feels natural and isn't distracting. But it also involves Ryu's opponent dragging him down to another area to fight and pushing him to turning evil. But there's also some parallels too. Obviously, this is 2D and that was 3D, but that episode also focused more on the martial arts and combo game, while this one focuses more on bouncing their special moves and varied abilities over pure martial arts. I also think this episode has better pacing. While Ryu vs Jin is a great episode, but sort of bothers me with how quickly Jin turns into Devil Jin, this episode feels more natural. And yeah, I didn't bring it up, but I also kind of wish that between Ryu using all of his V skills and busting out his super moves against Jin, we had a brief moment where Jin dropped one of his 10-hit combos in return, and then Ryu uses his super moves, leading into Devil Jin. I feel like that just would have been flowed a bit better. And honestly, evil Ryu vs Scorpion is so different in tone and feeling to regular Ryu vs Scorpion. It shares that with Ryu vs Jin as well, and I love it so much. I really appreciate when death battles don't just have a new form be a power-up, but also feel like it changes the course of the battle in more ways than just a higher number. In this case, Ryu goes from a lot more passive and defensive, waiting for Scorpion to make attacks for counter-attacking in his opening and pressing his advantage when he has it and making sure he doesn't get put in any disadvantaged state, to suddenly becoming the aggressor himself. He fights far more aggressively and more, well, like Akuma. And let me just say, the scene where evil Ryu literally no-sells Scorpion's sword so hard it shatters is fucking raw. The sound design for the episode is excellent, and it gives scenes like this, and especially evil Ryu's Shin Shoryuken, a lot of impact. Holy shit, this Shin Shoryuken feels a lot more painful than the one in Ryu vs Jin. It also helps to show Scorpion's gradual increase in power as he goes from completely overwhelmed by evil Ryu to being able to stab into him and gradually taking him down, leading to the power of nothingness. This is just a fun animation. It's nothing but high points through and through as it escalates and continues to give me basically the perfect fight. Except its similarities to Ryu vs Jin aren't all good, because the ending is a lame power of nothingness finisher. I don't even know if I'd say it's better or worse. Between Ryu just shooting a laser that ends the fight abruptly without us ever seeing the wound on Devil Jin, and Ryu shooting a laser that Scorpion just stands there and takes before shooting a beam of fire that Ryu tries to also stand there and take but dies to. And there's also one other lesser bit that annoys me. I like Ryu whiffing the Shungoku Satsu to an extent, but it does sort of spoil his loss. But then you kind of have to do that anyway. I mean, you kind of not do it or have him do it in Power of Nothingness. But what really gets me is Scorpion's fatality. It's meant to be like both fail their instant kill moves, but Ryu just sort of jumps slightly towards the blast and that's it. It doesn't even look like an impressive attack. It doesn't even look like Ryu needed to jump. It's just sort of lame and underwhelming. Aside from that, this was a good episode. One of my favorites from either series episodes, and honestly, it feels fitting that the poster boy of the entire fighting game genre has 2 stellar episodes. This episode gets that coveted 8 out of 10 rating. And if anybody's thinking, wow, only an 8? Keep in mind what other episodes I give an 8 out of 10 to, and you'll know that to me, that's an extremely high ranking.
In fact, Ragna
Is one dumb cat.
I should preface this by saying Guilty Gear is by far my second favorite fighting game franchise. I am a massive, devoted metalhead. Grew up on the genre of heavy metal, and seeing all these references in a fighting game with excellent mechanics, easily lovable characters, a willingness to be silly and fun, and a ton of personality made me fall in love with it almost immediately. And Ragna, well, I don't care much for the character, but I do like him. I think I think a lot of people hype him up for the wrong reasons and also hate him for the wrong reasons. Like, a lot of people think he's really edgy. The whole point is that he looks edgy, but he's not. I do like his design, though. I mean, someone should really take it and like make the hair purple, and it'd be like the sexiest character design of all time, especially if he wore black. So this episode is very mid. For everything I like in this episode, there's something holding it back. Let's take the analysis. Souls is great. Sure, the research isn't the best, but that's not really holding it back for me. I enjoyed it, I liked the jokes, and I thought it had a lot of good moments. As well as the ever-popular Batman scene, which is sort of ruined a little by the fact that Batman has a canon name now, but I still find the joke funny. On the other side though, Ragna's is literally just one joke that they use over and over again. Blaze Blue confusing! And while I enjoy some of the times they do it, they don't vary it enough. It feels like they just shoehorned in nobody knows in the situations where it wasn't needed. Like, did we really need to say nobody knows what currency is used in Blaze Blue? Like, first off, we know they're platinum dollars. They have a name. And second off, nobody cares. Does anybody give a shit about the fact that Blaze Blue uses platinum dollars? Obviously you guys didn't, because you didn't research enough to find that's what they're called, but you still made a joke about it as if that was funny. Like, I'm pretty sure this whole Blaze Blue analysis was done specifically to mock the series for how confusing it is. Don't do that. Don't do that. Unless it's a joke episode and there's something funny going on. Don't do that. In the animation, while I liked all the fighting and the cool combos and the constant switching over who was taking the lead in the fight with good sound design, animation quality, and effects, it's a boring, uninteresting, and outright ugly clash between a silhouette of some necks and a silhouette of Goat Satan that ends with one attack that just whites out the screen and we don't actually see properly before it just fades back and now everything but Soul on this pillar is gone. Good fight, shit ending. Even in the fight, I like how they have Ragna try to do this long line to summon his power only for Soul to stop him, forcing him to trap Soul in place to give him time to activate it. That's cool. I like that bit of character. Soul's not willing to let him activate his power, but Ragna manages to use his intelligence to do it anyway. But then we get this very uncool, ugly, and unfitting Ragna close-up and kind of ruins the whole moment. Now what score do I give this? It's an episode that greatly disrespects BlazBlue and mocks it relentlessly, but also is one of my favorite analysis segments in contrast. It has a great fight with an awful ending. It has great music, which isn't something it deserves praise for, and non-existent dialogue, which it doesn't deserve criticism for. Gets a 6 out of 10, because my bias for Guilty Gear is given it that pity. Now if you got a problem with my bias for Guilty Gear, then make it like a tree and fuck off.
Well, Thanos wields more power than Guts. This is what Guts does every single day.
So this is the episode I made a whole video talking about. Yeah, I kind of regret that video, but what do I think about the episode on its own? Well, first off, my opinion on the episode in that video will not be taken into account. A lot of my personal dislike for this episode comes from how it shaped the general perception of Guts in the verse community, but that's not solely the episode's fault. Guts is a great character, but it sucks to see people play him up as if he's unstoppable, and really, it's the fact that he's not unstoppable that's part of his charm. He's not the strongest character, but he's willing to go all out and do whatever it takes to stand up against those stronger than him. Regardless, let's look at the episode itself. one of my personal least favorites, might not actually be that bad. The analysis is fine. There's some jokes that are acceptable, but mostly it's pretty barren. The best part is the music, which comes from Berserk's original anime and movie trilogy and Soul Calibur's OSTs, both of which are great soundtracks. The animation, meanwhile, is fine as well. The first part of the fight is probably the best. The two both get off a ton of blows, with very few proper strikes landing, mostly blocking and clashing swords with one another. Guts' ferocity is shown off well as its Nightmare's brute force. The Night Terror transformation is also really good, and his total domination at the start of his appearance really sells his power. Everything after that is stupid. Guts fires arrows. Good. Night Terror for some reason defends himself with a wall of fire that prevents him from seeing Guts. He could have just tanked them without being harmed because they're fucking arrows, and this allows Guts to two-shot Night Terror. Yeah, but supposedly being the ultimate form of Nightmare, it gets two-shot, and then after that, his body fades away. Oh, but not his right arm, not his precious right arm. And then he turns into Cinder from Killer Instinct, a sprite that looks nothing like Inferno, clashes with the art style of the animation, and does nothing but stand there while an effect plays in the background. If you were going to have Inferno barely move, you could just draw a single static sprite. This was Season 2, you could ask someone to draw a single sprite. Then there's Guts, standing in this fire, apparently being hurt. He activates the Berserker armor and one-shots Inferno, because you know what? Fuck Nightmare. He gets one-shot as Nightmare, two-shot as Night Terror, and one-shot as Inferno. What a disappointing finish. It doesn't even make sense that cutting Soul Edge in half would kill him. He's literally come back from having Soul Edge obliterated into splint. Right, that's bringing in outside information into this. What did they have against Nightmare that he gets taken out in 4 total direct hits? One of those was just disarming him. He technically only gets killed in 3 proper hits. And the conclusion is fucking terrible. Guts wins because he commonly fights things stronger than him, but no metric is given for how strong those are, while we know Nightmare's feats and they're far better than anything Guts has, even given in the episode. Oh, but Guts' sword can destroy Soul Edge because it exists on an astral plane. So because Guts' sword is technically hitting twice the amount of sword as anyone else, that allows it to break Soul Edge? How does that work? Soul Edge is stronger in the astral plane. If he can't break it in the physical one, he won't be able to break it in the astral. It's almost like this episode where Boomstick fanboys all over Guts for 75% of it is heavily biased. And you know, I'm not even upset that Guts won, because I do love Guts and I prefer him to Nightmare, but the conclusion is ass. The argument for Guts resisting mind control as soul corruption is that he really likes his sword and he knows it's not a good idea, even though neither of those things stop Soul Edge from making him not like the sword and making him not think it's a bad idea. Like, it's corrupting someone's mind. Liking something and having basic competency is not resistance to mind corruption. 5 out of 10. It has some good things in it, but I didn't enjoy it overall. If Nightmare wasn't taken out so easily in all 3 forms, it wasn't so obviously biased to Guts, and the conclusion had any good arguments at all, maybe you get a 6.
Tai Lung is the greatest character ever! And damn, what an ass!
For some reason, the audio balancing in this episode's analysis seems kinda weird. I don't know, sometimes I have trouble hearing, at least in Sonya's analysis, what's being said. Anyway, yeah, the analysis of this episode doesn't let it down. It's got some pretty good jokes, and the joke about Cammy's ass is probably one of the best Boomstick pervert jokes, because the joke is at the expense of Boomstick being a pervert. You know, it's mocking Boomstick's perversion, and I'm okay with that. And Jonya is funny? I don't know. But let's look at the fight. This is ugly. Like, wow. Sonya Sprite and Cammy Sprite on their own are fine because they're just in the style of the games, but they do not look good together. And on this background, sometimes they almost blend in and become difficult to make out properly. And when this episode tries to be fancy with its camera angles and quick cuts, it only makes the issue worse. Oh, and good job, you did the opposite of what Ryu vs Scorpion did and used official voice clips that are very obviously official voice clips and don't at all sound natural between the two. I think there are 3 shots I like in this whole thing. I like Sonya tossing Kano's corpse as a weapon, I like the shot of Cammy first activating her psycho power, and I like the kill, which is pretty nasty. The rest is at best boring with bare bones choreography that does the bare minimum, and at worst a mixture of awful rigging, outright bad choreography, and this shot of Sonya's player select. The death is good, but its setup is kinda weird. Cammy throws a knife at the drone and seems surprised by something. It shoots at Cammy after she gets stunned by a grenade, then randomly starts to glitch out and crash into her. What? Like, yeah, it's really brutal to poor Cammy, but it's just so confusing. At the very least, I appreciate Sonya getting some X-ray stuff and a gruesome Mortal Kombat kill. How novel. Unfortunately, the rest of the fight is borderline atrocious and an embarrassment of animation. Add in the fact that the music is weird, has lyrics that don't fit, and is extremely low-key for the first half, and ooh, you got a nice turd there, don't you? 3 out of 10. Bleh. I'm running out of things to say.
Such wasted potential.
We have a Mortal Kombat vs Killer Instinct death battle that peaks with a joke Boomstick makes at the start. Wow, where have I heard this setup before? I fucking love that they say Sub-Zero has defeated some really strong guys, like Reptile, iconic member of the biggest Mortal Kombat jobbers trio. Oh wait, I forgot. Wiz makes one funny joke when talking about Glacius, where the joke is that he can't make a good joke. And I like Wiz calling Boomstick just outright weird at the end of it. You know, Glacius' analysis, it's good. The fight, however, well, speaking of power loss of Fulgore vs Sektor, the fight starts because the Mortal Kombat character is running randomly and happens upon the Killer Instinct one in a state that's difficult to see, and then they just decide to fight. Except this time, Sub-Zero uses a bunch of voice lines from his game that fit even worse than Cammy and Sonya's. And the fight is so boring. It's not even a fight where there's enough bad for me to complain about. It's literally just a fight too boring for me to comment on in any regard. How am I supposed to critique what is the absolute bare minimum? It's not good, it's not bad, it's not anything, it's nothing. It has no low points, it has no high points, the animation is more or less pointless. It has a bunch of things that should be awesome but are animated slowly or boringly. The fight's only noteworthy points are a strange tree back that comes out of nowhere and is never addressed, and the ending where Sub-Zero is animated in a way that is a painfully dorkly looking animation. And we get a fake out so obvious, Glacius might as well have turned to camera and said, "Give it a few seconds, he's not dead." Sure, Sub-Zero's kill is pretty good itself, but that's cause that's what you do when Sub-Zero wins. Also the hand that's melted off switches. Solid 5, I don't care enough to keep talking about it.
Oh, it's just like Rock'em Sock'em Robots!
This episode is... wow. This is a stunning episode, and even if I actively looked for things to criticize, here's what I can give you. Balrog's model sometimes clears through his outfit, Boomstick's pun at the end sucks, and technically Balrog should not have been wearing this into the ring in the first place, as technically that's an infraction to the rules of boxing, at least as far as I'm aware. Yes, I watched that video about what Punch-Out characters are breaking the rules of boxing. Why do you ask? I mean, sure, Balrog doesn't care about the rules, but he does seem to be trying to follow them, at least in the first half of the fight. As for the episode's good points, let's start with the analysis. This is basically the perfect analysis style in my eyes. It has the versus calcs, it has the listing of abilities and techniques, it has the discussion of character and personality, and it interweaves all of these when talking about the stories of the characters. In this episode, you don't just learn about what Balrog and TJ Combo can do, you learn about Balrog and TJ Combo, who they are, what they're like. It helps to tell you not just about the functions of the character, but also the characters themselves, helped by some brilliant ending clips that highlight the biggest character traits of the two, Balrog's greed and TJ's determination. This is what I want from Death Battles, especially ones that talk about characters I don't know very well. I want to come out of this not just knowing what the character is capable of, but who they are, at least in a limited capacity. I want to know about the character, not the power set after all, and I assume people want characters in Death Battle because they care about the characters and not just the power set. So coming out of this and knowing a little more about TJ Combo was really cool. And the fight just... wow. The fight goes for a very specific atmosphere and tone and pulls it off very well. The fight begins set up as if it's an in-universe boxing match between the characters, a setup that's so natural and so well done. And honestly, I'm sure some people are not a fan of the running commentary to this fight, but I love it. It just adds to the atmosphere. If I was a boxing fan, I'd probably be even more into this. Hell, if we ever get something like King vs Tizok or Incineroar, I'd pop off if it's done like this as well, like in a professional wrestling style. I am, after all, a professional wrestling fan. I'd pop off so hard. The fight is set with title cards, and hilariously the ads at the top that you'd get in these sort of events are taking out with Blue Apron ads. That's just funny to me. And when the battle starts, it sets the pacing up so well. The characters don't use many of their crazy techniques, instead they just follow boxing rules and focus on actual boxing, to the point of apparently a round passing. I guess if you want to be really nitpicky, you can say the round in this episode did not last a full 3 minutes, but fucked off, that would have ruined the pacing if we just had a full 3 minutes of regular boxing. Not to say there's anything wrong with actual boxing, but the reason you can watch that for 3 minutes is that they're real people with real stakes. I appreciate greatly not only that the fight starts with the two doing their Street Fighter V and Killer Instinct reboot intros to one another, which is just an amazing reference that fits the character so well with Balrog's posturing and TJ's taunting in their animation, but then once we get to the round break and back into the fight, we see TJ's experience without needing him to talk about it or even say what he's doing. We can blatantly see that due to his experience and skill, he's got a read on Balrog and he's starting to overwhelm him, to the point of throwing taunts himself because, let's not forget, for as cool as TJ is, he's kind of an asshole as well. But then Balrog breaks the rules and devolves into the sort of fight it would be if it was done any other way, the two just throwing out the techniques and stuff like it's a street fight. And in this context, I think it's greater than if it was the whole fight. It highlights both Balrog's cheating nature, but also TJ's by how instead of calling him out for it, TJ just actively takes Balrog's challenge and goes straight to illegal moves of his own. Balrog cleans up the ref and throws off his big blue piece of shit, which ironically means now he's dressed more legally for boxing. but he's still wearing that gold chain, which is illegal, so. Now the fight becomes a straight up no rules beatdown, and we get to see them throwing out their specific techniques and flowing them so naturally into their fighting that you almost don't realize they're doing specific techniques. We get what's probably the most natural combo breaker, which itself came after Balrog got the advantage from his own counter. Sadly, it's not his crush counter animation from Street Fighter V, as that would have been an awesome reference, but I'm not going to be picky. And this 360 circling shot of the two just throwing hands and trying to outmaneuver and take each other out is so good. The character animation is genuinely fantastic for this whole fight, though given their fighting styles generally display their personalities in universe, I guess it just points for accuracy to how the characters fight. The two tear up the ring as they escalate, leading to the two going for their big punches, but Balrog being the one to turn the tables by sidestepping TJ and hitting him with his critical art. Balrog even says the thing he says in Street Fighter V, which people who don't get the reference probably wouldn't be bothered by because this just fits the context of the fight, but people who get the reference will just love it because it's great. And what we get is by far one of the best comebacks in any episode. This is in the Iron Man I've been playing God tier. I'm dead serious. To some it even surpasses it. TJ flying limp to the ground in a cinematic shot reminiscent of classic boxing movies and tropes is such a good moment, especially when he gets back up and he bunts himself to get back into the fight. It's a level of hype and pure awesomeness that can't be described. The sort of thing you talk about in the writing room thinking, yeah, I guess that'd be a cool moment to have, only for it to come to life when animated, voiced and edited in a way that exceeds all expectations, and we get probably the most satisfying beatdown in the series as the loudmouth asshole Balrog gets pummeled over and over until his head comes flying off with one final vortex punch. And it's such a smart choice to have the last two big blows from the two be Balrog's elephant killing punch and TJ's vortex punch, which are the punches they outright compare in the conclusion! A conclusion which makes the fight seem so close and so tight as if it could really go either way. Something reflected in the animation as Balrog nearly wins it all with his final blow. Oh my god, this episode is so good, I can't even be mad at how cheap the Silhouette people are. What of it? I'm a Ruby fan, I've been watching since Volume 1, these fucking Silhouette people give me a sense of nostalgia before disdain. 10 out of 10, what the fuck else am I supposed to say? A nearly flawless analysis with a borderline flawless fight with a basically perfect death and almost unparalleled comeback, a fantastic conclusion, and flaws so small they amount to some clipping issues and a technicality! Oh, and I guess Balrog's broken arm looks kinda stupid, fuck off! If that's enough to distract from how awesome this beatdown is, I don't know what to say. This is it. This is the pinnacle of fighting game episodes, at least so far. It's hard to describe how great this episode is. I came in expecting to give it a 10, and came out wanting to give it an 11. It's easily one of my favorite episodes of the entire show, and that's saying a lot given I don't care about either character that much. But you want to know something? I left this episode being a fan of TJ Combo. A character I barely know from a franchise I've played maybe twice ever in my life. If that's not a testament to how good this episode is, I don't know what else is. How could they possibly keep up this level of quality? Oh hey, the next fighting episode was also great, but I can't talk about it. Not that I'm complaining, I'm sure the one after that will also be really good.
Cause I'm gonna punch you in your fucking balls.
Oh, fuck off. Oh wait, no, it actually is good? Wow, damn, that was the perfect setup for an I jinxed myself joke. Never mind. How am I even supposed to criticize an episode that references Beyblade? It's literally fucking perfect. Anyway, yeah, Captain Falcon vs Johnny Cage is a really good episode. The analyses are fun, focusing a lot on the characters and their stories, which is great, as well as the versus debating side of things, which, of course, is cool. And the fight is just really, really fun. The action is the perfect embodiment of simple fun. Aside from some weird looking running early on, the fight is just really good and full of character. Which, given we've got Johnny Cage, should be pretty obvious. And hey, he's betrayed Betty here than even past Johnny in Mortal Kombat 11, so that's pretty cool. If kinda sad. Surprisingly, the actual reasoning for the fight is actually fleshed out and believable, giving Mortal Kombat characters will fight over basically anything. Having the fight start because Johnny Cage boasts about himself, and that makes the fight list joking implying Captain Falcon misinterpret what he said, leading to a fight where Johnny just accepts the battle immediately, really works for me. Because even if it's stupid, Johnny got into a fight with Jax over being a bit of a dickhead one time. As for the voice acting, Keston Howard does a serviceable job as Captain Falcon, but I don't know, it's not my favourite of his roles. But given his other roles we're seeing with Champa Bunch and being Mickey Mouse, I don't know what competition there is there. I think it's fine, but not all of his attempts at Falcon's English really work for me, and I think it's noticeable that it's kind of off when he directly quotes Smash. However, I do think he Aaron Flitton's Johnny Cage is excellent. Basically every line read is pulled off perfectly for the character. The fight start is kinda shoddy though, aside from Johnny's voice. The first set of blows from Falcon seem really weird, and while I've loved Johnny just being able to toss his entire suit off at a moment's notice of one swing, I kinda wish they had the capacity to edit the sprite to include his now iconic Johnny tattoo across his chest. But once they start getting through the combos, the fight really gets going. The opening bit of them just doing martial arts is great, leading into Falcon's Falcon kick and Raptor boost, which if you're wondering, I'm fine with them focusing mainly on Smash with Falcon, cause Really, that's where he does most of his fighting across the whole franchise. Of course, then we get to the Falcon Punch whiff being punished with a Nut Punch, which is just amazing. It fits the Falcon Punch to be whiffed and punished, and Johnny taking the opportunity to punch Falcon right in the balls is great. Though he does pull back the punch with his right arm and then hit him with the left, so Falcon's response in the following banter is also really good, leading into Johnny taking the fight to an F-Zero track, which is a great choice that allows for far more creative choreography as the two fight on top of F-Zero races. Though admittedly, I don't much buy Johnny being stunned by how cool Falcon's knee is when really it's nothing special as far as he'd be concerned, and he's often not distracted by stuff like this as if he's Poe. But him making sure to give a good smile for the camera upon recovering is very in character. The usage of boost pads to give us a super fast-paced section where they're flying through the air at crazy speeds and Johnny able to use his smarts to gain an advantage is awesome. And it makes use of an X-ray, which isn't as impactful as Cammy vs Sonya, but doesn't take me out of the fight as much as Canary vs Sindel, seeing as he fractures the lower part of Falcon's jaw, which wouldn't cripple him for the rest of the fight. However, then there's what makes me totally unequivocally fine with him using mostly Smash. Falcon calls in the Blue Falcon, and instead of just doing his Final Smash, he actually uses the two main things from outside of Smash that he would do. The Falcon Punch is based directly on the final one he did against Black Doom, and we also get the Boost Fire, meaning this is the closest we'll ever have their Beyblade on Death Battle until someone on the team pulls their finger out of their ass and realize how fucking base Beyblade is. And here, I like that Johnny doesn't just let himself die, he actually keeps fighting even after being hit by the Blue Falcon. It's only after he gets razored by the Booster Fire that he starts putting up a fight, which I think works even if Johnny isn't in this shot. And this is the only episode in this whole review with its own custom track, and it's fucking phenomenal. Falcon Uncaged, based. Honestly, I didn't expect to do this, but I'm giving this episode an 8 out of 10. I didn't really plan on it, but honestly, looking back, the analysis and fight are both fantastic, and the conclusion is fairly decent, though the stuff about bullets is kinda weird, not gonna lie. And that was the video. Oh, that was a lot. Piss off and have a good one, guys.